Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to Family Mix Mondays with your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Welcome back, Source Nation. Again, I'm your host, Jaketra Bryant, and you're listening to Family Mix Mondays. This week, we are continuing our series of intentional parenting, just about on-purpose parenting, having some intent behind us. And tonight, I have a guest, Joshua Peltier, who is going to share some insight on the communication aspect for parents and for children to communicate with their parents. But before he comes on, let me tell you some more about him. So Joshua Peltier attended Fisk University, where he studied communication. He later attended Howard University for film. Mr. Peltier is a communication specialist with over 10 years of teaching professional development to all ages and backgrounds. Mr. Peltier owns and operates Brightcom Entertainment, and he also is the host and creator of Communication with Josh, which is a weekly web series that speaks to everyday people about how communication has helped them to become successful. He's creator of Design for Greatness, a program that teaches young people how to clearly and effectively communicate for optimal success in life, happiness, and health. So I do believe we have Mr. Peltier in the studio with me. Hello, and welcome to Family Mix Mondays.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you for being on the show tonight. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Well, absolutely. How about yourself?
Good, good. Thanks for asking. So before we begin, go ahead and tell the Source Nation family a little bit more about you and what you do and just whatever you want to share with them.
Well, that bio says a lot. It pretty much sums it up. What I try to do with what I do in my everyday life is to help people communicate better, because understanding, if you know how to communicate better, you have a better chance at success. And what people sometimes fail to understand is that every single thing you do in life is communication. From the moment you wake up, from how you eat your cereal, from how you walk, from how you talk, from how you answer the phone, from what you put on, it's all communication. And if we as people can understand everything is communication, then we can determine what exactly are we communicating. And what I do mostly is try to help people understand exactly what are they conveying to the world. And I also try to help people communicate positively to themselves, because the number one reason that people fail is not because they don't try or they don't put forth the effort. That has something to do with it. But the fact that they believe that they can't succeed in the first place is why they don't even try. Nobody wakes up and says, I want to be a drug dealer or I want to go rob a bank. It's because they feel they can't do anything else, and that is why they go down that path. And it all starts with what they have told themselves.
Love it. So great segue into tonight's series. And so Source Nation, Mr. Joshua has so much to share with you on communication. We're going to bring it into a perspective with parenting, for parents to talk to their children and what they're actually conveying to them. And we're also going to help some of our youth and young adults and our children communicate back to our parents and what signals that is given off. So the phone lines are open, and you are listening live to Family Mix Mondays, and our special guest is Joshua Peltier in the studio. And so if you would like to call and ask Joshua a question or myself, the number to dial in is 619-924-0933, and you press option 1. That's 619-924-0933, press option 1. And so as far as you and I, Joshua, we're going to go ahead and get started and invite these callers in. And so, Joshua, I heard you mention just the reasons that you have come into this particular field, and I think that's really awesome, and I admire that about you, because there is nothing we can do without communicating something. And so I was wondering, what are some common issues that you see with communication between parents and children?
There's a lot of issues. It all depends on what the background is and what the situation is. But one of the main issues that I find that a lot of parents have in dealing with young people is they are afraid to ask them what's going on in their lives. They are afraid to, for lack of a better term, be nosy. They do not want to invade on their children's privacy. So what happens is they allow their children to, quote, unquote, run amok without them knowing anything about it, and instead of digging and delving into their kids' everyday lives. And what parents need to understand, and first of all, I'm not trying to badger or belittle any parenting, because understand parenting is a very difficult job in and of itself. But what parents need to focus on is that if you do not put yourself in the center of that child's life, that child will make their own decisions. And one day you will wake up and be like, what happened? I never knew my child was like this. And it all started because you were not in depth in dealing with that child's everyday life. It's very important that you be nosy, that you pick around, that you go through their phone, that you keep the door open at all times. I grew up in a household, my mother said, you will never shut this door. The only time I shut the door is when I took a bath. I think I had to leave a crack in it. I'm just playing. That's not true. But understand, it's necessary that you're in these child's lives. And what parents need to understand is the kids, they want you in their lives. They want you to be nosy. They want you to be picking around. They want you to care about them, because by you constantly poking your nose, it shows that you care. You do not want to have a child at 5 and then all of a sudden realize it's 18 and you didn't know that they were in some sort of gang or that they were a part of something that was illegal. And the way that you can avoid not knowing is being in their lives and being nosy. So what I do with parents, and I tell them, you don't want to force yourself into the child's life. It's a steady growth. It's a 7-day transformation process that I help adults do, that you have to just nudge your way in. And by the time at the end of the 7 days, you'll have a better perspective or a better understanding of who your child is. And parents come back to me all the time. I had no idea my son thought those things. And I said, the only way you will ever know is if you actually put yourself in their lives. A child cannot raise his or herself. So that's the biggest thing that I find out. They do not want to be nosy because they don't want the child to be mad at them.
That's a really good point. I can see that being like a common theme, no matter like what ethnicity that we're talking about when it comes to parenting. And I think like one of the things that I've seen like commonality as a clinician is the fear of what people think the child might say. And so oddly enough, not knowing keeps the person away from knowing and being able to provide some kind of help, which is odd.
Exactly.
True.
Exactly. Because if you know, say your daughter is 2 months pregnant, instead of you finding out that she was pregnant, you didn't know she was pregnant, now you can deal with it. Now you can deal with the situation. But if the baby just happened, and I had no idea she was pregnant, well, you were never, ever curious. I have a parent right now who is terrified of asking her daughter if she's having sex. And I said to her, you need to find out. You need to ask her. No, we're going to go to the doctor. I said, by the time you go to the doctor, it may be too late, because you need to open up that communication bridge. What I do with people, I do not fix situations. Let me say that first of all. I do not fix situations. But what I do is I help people communicate better so they can fix their own situations. But if you decide never to say anything to the child and she just happens and she's pregnant, that could have been, I'm not saying it could have been prevented, but the situation could have been dealt with a lot differently if you had a conversation with that child beforehand.
I agree. I love it. That's why I was so excited about having you on here, because everything is communication. And for so many reasons that people just avoid so many things and they just don't know the benefits of it. And that leads me to my next question. Like, I noticed that you work with all ages on communication and professional development. And so let's tell some of the family, Source Nation family, about some of the success stories that you've had with helping people communicate after they've done some of your workshops.
It's amazing. And thank you for having me on the show. I forgot to ask you. I was so focused on what to talk about that I forgot to thank you. So thank you, Jaketra, for your installation and how you are being such a benefit to society as a whole. It's amazing that you find out so much about people when they realize how much they don't know about someone else. And you hear parents, you hear adults. I had couples come up to me and say, I had no idea my husband was like this. So once again, all I do is create a bridge that both of them can cross and find out more about each other. I've had mothers come up to me who are just at their wits' end about their son. And 7 days later, they would see me, and a mother just came up and gave me a hug. And I said, okay. And she said, it worked. And I said, okay, what worked? She said, what you told my son, it worked. And she said, what you told me, it has really worked. And I told them, and I tell both of them separately, you have to just be consistent in your actions. But you have to be three things with your consistent actions. You have to be, one, you have to be positive. You have to always be positive. Even if there's something negative to say, find a positive way to say it. Number two, you have to have a praise factor. You have to put that person on this pedestal to make them feel good, so when they want to do good again, they're going to get praised again. It's a circular effect, and it continues the process of happening of them doing well. And number three, you have to be patient. You can't go off. You can't snap. If it's not happening fast enough, you just got to keep on fighting through the barrier. You have to keep on fighting through the barrier. So I've had parents come up to me, hug me. I've had relationships of women who come up to me and thank you so much for helping me out with my relationship. I've had a woman tell me that I helped her more than an hour than her psychologist helped her out in 3 months. And I say, all I do is create the bridge. I'm just giving you an opportunity for you to talk to the other person. You can talk back and nobody bites you the head off. So it's always a positive thing. And they're simple tactics. They're not hard to do, but you just have to be consistent in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love your 3 Ps. That's great. Give them to us again.
There's more than that, but these are the basis one to start the process.
Well, those 3 Ps, those particular ones.
Yeah,
I like
not in a particular order. You have to be patient. You have to always be patient with the child or with the spouse or with the loved one, with the grandparents. You have to be patient. But you always have to be positive. It's very important that you be positive. That may be the most important fact. And you have to have praise. For example, I'll just give you a quick example. If you have a son whose room is messy all the time and the room is just pathetically horrible, like it's disgusting, you tell the child, this is your suggestion, you tell the child, I really think your room would be so much better if it was, just a little bit neater. It would make me feel better. Every time the child will look at the dirty room, he'll say to himself, you know what, this will make my mother or father feel better. Let me pick something up. And if you go into the room the next time and the child picks up one thing, so if you see one sock up off the floor or one book or one piece of paper that's moved up out of the way, you tell the child, I am so glad you picked up that piece of paper. Oh, my goodness, your room looks 10 times better already. He would look at the room and be like, really? It looks the same to me. He said, if you go up to the child and you tell the child, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Now, he's thinking every time that paper is gone, he's thinking, well, if she felt that good or if he felt that good off of that piece of paper, let me pick something else up. You go back and you notice something else. And, wow, I can't believe you picked that up. You keep on doing this positive, being consistent. Next thing you know, the room will be spotless. In 7 to 10 days, I can't guarantee it, but my results have shown that the room will be spotless. Then you make a big deal. You tell other people, my son cleaned this room up, and it looks like the Taj Mahal. And he'll be proud about himself. And then he'll go other places and try to keep other places clean. Then you can start the processes of changing grades if you want him to act differently, but you have to get him to buy in to what you believe in the first place. That's why it's so important to be positive and showcase the praise. Then if your child gets a C and one day he gets a B, you promote that B. Oh, my goodness, you got a B. You take that B, you put it on the refrigerator so everybody can see. You take a picture of the B and you text people. He will feel so good about himself. I did good. I wonder how she'll act if I get an A. Then he'll start to change his ways and try to get A's. Then you can actually help him. Then they'll bring everything together. But it's all communication. So what you're doing by giving him the praise, by promoting him, is communicating to him that you care about him. He's going to communicate to you back to you that he wants to show you a reason to care. So he's going to keep on doing these things without you even thinking about it. Now, you do not have to yell. You do not have to cuss or scream. You do not have to go off on them. You have to embarrass them. You don't have to put them down. If you keep on putting people in the right highlight, they want to stay in that light because they're going to keep on doing things to be promoted, praiseworthy, and be positive in the same passion.
That's some really, really good points. I like that. And consistency, something that you mentioned before previously, I'm sure is definitely a factor with it. But I really like that. I want to piggyback, or not really piggyback, but kind of allow you to elaborate with the positive side. And so I think the positive thing is something definitely to ensure is something that's there, because I think a lot of things and a lot of particular common themes that I've seen that keeps people, whether it's a parent or a child or just any kind of person in authority or just a person, from communicating is this negative connotation that is going to turn out badly or that is not going to work in their favor. They're going to be rejected. They're going to find out something they don't want to know. So the focus is always on what they believe is negatively going to happen. So I like the fact that there's a positive focus that the person must actually focus on to actually get the favorable outcome. And so I hope our Source Nation family and listeners really pulled on to that. And so Source Nation, if you're just tuning in, and so Source Nation family, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Family Mix Monday with Joshua Peltier. And so the phone lines are open. So if you'd like to ask Mr. Joshua a question, the number to call is 619-924-0933 and press option 1. And so go ahead, what were you saying?
I was just going to say that it is a process. See, and being positive is something that you have to train yourself how to be in life. And if you're brought up in a certain background, if you're brought up in a certain household, I have spoken directly to parents who have told me that their parents never told them any kind words. They felt like they had to fight for all the attention. They had to fight, just to be respected in their own house. So as they get older, they treat their children the same way. Now, this is, in fact, true, but it is not a scapegoat. It's not a reason or an excuse for you to treat your son or daughter the same way, especially if you know better. But if you look at the results of being positive and being negative, there's always going to be a direct relation to one is really, really good and one is really, really bad. When a child picks up stuff, if a mother yells at a child to constantly pick up something, to clean up his room and yell and scream, the child is only going to do it just because they don't want to hear the voice. But what if the mother is not there? What if the mother does not tell the son to do it or yell at him or scream at him? Does he still want to clean it up? What you want to do is create inside the mind of the child that if he does this, there will be a reward. And the reward comes in the joy that he sees in his mother. So the positive works. I guarantee it works. And it doesn't always work immediately because sometimes kids automatically believe that you're being positive just to be positive. They don't think you're being sincere. They think that, they're doing it for a little while, and they'll go back to him going off and cussing, whatever. That's why a lot of kids are ashamed to bring their problems to their parents because they know they're going to get a negative reaction. But if they can have a situation where they do something and the situation is not going to turn out negative, they'll tell you everything. I've had kids run them. The issues I have is people do not stop talking to me because I listen to them and I don't be negative with their intentions. I have heard some crazy stuff, and that's like putting it nicely. It's amazing what people say to me, but I never negative after. I never go, what? That was crazy. That's stupid. Why would you do something like that? That kind of communication is a direct reflection of how that person is not going to respond to you. By me coming off in that way is going to cut off the communication process, and that person is not going to want to talk to me at all, ever again. Mm-hmm. So if you're positive, all you're doing is keeping that bridge open, and that child will tell you everything. And when that child tells you everything, you have to keep a straight face. I have whole sessions about how to train parents on not to react to what the child says, because if you react, that child may not tell you anything ever again. So, yeah, being positive is very important. And just because you had a bad childhood, that's not an excuse for you to be negative to your child.
Mm-hmm. And so, I want to help our Source Nation family with just a couple of strategies that you use to improve that open dialogue, to help those particular parents talk to their children about subjects and help the teens and children talk to parents. So what are some strategies that you've actually used to help with this dialogue?
Okay, very good, very good. Number one, the parent must come to the conclusion in their mind, what is the number one thing I'm trying to get out of the conversation? If you're just trying to have a conversation for a young person, just to have a conversation, that's good. But if you're trying to get to like an end to a means, if you're trying to figure out a solution to a problem, you have to write that down on a piece of paper. Because what will happen is, if you're talking to a young person, and say you want to find out about the letter C, that's all you want to care about is the letter C, but you hear about the letter A, and A is crazy, B is crazy, D is ridiculous. Oh, my goodness, stop you from focusing on C. So you have to first write down what is it that you really want to discover. Once you find out what you really want to discover, you have to put that on a piece of paper. Then you practice in a mirror, and this is very important. You practice in a mirror not having a reaction. So you have to constantly talk. Say if your son's name is Johnny. Johnny, I just want to have a conversation with you. Just blah, 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 blah. How was day? How was your school? And practice looking in the mirror and look at your reaction, because children, especially kids, read off of the energy and the physical attributes that any parent is giving them. So if you're talking to the child, saying, Johnny, I want to know what's going on with you. If you're talking to a child in a negative demeanor, the child's going to give back negative. But if you talk back to a child like, Johnny, how was school? Just, blatant. He's going to say good. I say good. So what did you do? We didn't do anything. Really? Just start the conversation. Make it light. Don't ever be forceful with it. That's the trick. So many parents want to know right away. They want to know right away. You got to build up their trust. Even though the son's been living in your house for 15, maybe 16 years, there still has to be a trust when he wants to share his information with you. So you have to just ease into it. Once you ease into the process, he'll start to give you more and more information every single day. But you have to be consistent with the same attitude. You cannot snap. You cannot go off on him, and you can't point fingers. You have to be consistent and just ease into it. Like I tell folks, I will give you the apple. I will never make you eat the apple. I will never shove the apple down your throat. What I will do is I will place the apple. I say, here's the apple. Here are the benefits. If you do this, it'll make you feel better. If you do this, you'll have a better health, blah, 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 blah. Do you want the apple? Now, you made up the decision. You are the person, I want the apple. I'll take the apple. But instead of me saying, you better eat this apple, by me not telling you what to do, but you giving you the option, is going to give the other person the ability to share their information. The same way with a child. I'm giving you the option to tell me about your day. I'm giving you the perspective that you want to tell me, not that you have to. So you have to do this process day in, day out, day in, day out. And that's what I did with the young lady who came up to me and gave me a hug. And she was just like, I can't get my son to stop talking now. He just will not stop talking. And I said, because you have built that bridge, you have not forced your opinions, you have not made him talk, you just put it out and left the door open, and he just walked in. So it's a process. I had to really physically demonstrate it in front of you on exactly how to do it, because so many parents, I hear them doing it, and they'll practice doing it, and they're doing it the wrong way. And there is a right way and a wrong way of doing it, but the good thing is that you're practicing in the first place, because so many parents are even terrified to even practice in the mirror because they don't want to find out the truth about what's going on with their children. So once you get over that hurdle, then we go over the next hurdle. Some parents, it'll take 7 to 10 days. Some parents, it'll take a month. Some parents I've seen get over in a couple of days, and some parents can do it in a couple of hours. It all depends on where they're at, but everybody's at a different place. But you have to do it in the first place. So those are the basic steps. There's a little bit more in it, but those are the basic things. Write it down exactly what you want to find out. Practice it in a mirror, number 2, and make sure that when you're talking in the mirror, you're talking directly to the child, but you're not talking at the child. And also, always remember the apple. You're placing the apple for him to eat. You're not shoving it down his throat. Eventually, they're going to eat the apple because they're going to see the benefits in talking to you. They're going to see the benefits in the conversation, and they're going to want to give back what you're giving them.
That was a really, really good point about that, and I think like practice will help that anxiety or help that person that's not feeling at ease or just comfortable about like having these initial conversations, whether the topic is about like sex, drugs, relationships, or just everyday worries, to just rehearse it and practice it and practice the response. And so definitely the response and what your facial expression looks like makes all the difference. As to, like, if the child is indeed, like you said, going to actually talk back to you or come with even more information. So what about for those children and youth that are our listeners that want to talk to their parents? Do you have strategies that you often teach some of the youth at the schools with how to communicate sensitive subjects to their parents?
Yes, very good, very good. Now, this is different. Now, this is very tricky because, believe it or not, the kid is always more open than the parent is. So the child is always further along in expressing themselves. I know some people go, well, my son doesn't say anything. That's because he hasn't been given that bridge. But once that bridge is open, that child won't stop talking. The issue is if the parent is in a place to receive it. The parent has got to be in a place to receive it. And kids, I used to be the director of youth of a church. And after it was over, the kids would come up to me and tell me the situations that they would have at home. And they would tell me how they would want to do better. They would really, really want to do better. But they said if they did better, it would not be appreciated. And I'm like, how do you know? And they would give me situations and scenarios that happened in the house. So they're like, why even put forth the effort to change if the parent is not going to show them any kind of change? Convincing and changing the parent is really difficult but it's not possible. It's not possible. It's really difficult because a lot of parents feel that you're not as old as me. I've been through life. I pay the bills, this, that, and the other. There's nothing you can do. But the parent has got to come to a realization that the child is reaching out to you. Once the child starts the process of reaching out to you, you have already won. Once that child reaches out to you, he needs a hand or she needs a hand to reach back. So what I usually do is the child will give me a conversation, tell me a scenario or whatever that happens in his house, and he will want stuff to change. And I will have to speak with the parent one-on-one at a different time because it would have to come from me, and I would have to explain to them, listen, your son is doing this because he's acting like this because he wants your attention because as a parent may give me stuff, well, I'm too busy, I don't have enough time, this, that, and the other. And I said, I understand that totally. And I feel exactly where you're coming from. I've felt like that before. But what I have found out is that if you give this young man the attention he needs, he will start to act in a certain way. And I tell them, children, especially kids, they don't see all your bills. They don't see all the time that you spend working. They don't see all the sacrifices. All they notice is how much time you spend with them. All they notice is if you give little Susie more attention than you give little Johnny. This is how their minds are structured to work. This is human behavior. This is basic conceptualization of how they actually organize their thoughts. You make sense to me because you're an adult, but all this child sees is you not paying attention to them. And what he's trying to do to you by getting these grades, by changing his behavior, he wants you to give him the proper attention. If you do not give him the proper attention, he's going to get the attention from someplace else. And I try to be very, very specific when I'm talking to adults, like, listen, I'm not belittling you. I'm not bringing you down. I'm not trying to badger you. I'm not trying to anger you. But I need to give you the truth of the situation. because I'm not going to be negative. I know you're busy, but I need you to give you some positive aspects on what you probably could do to help the situation go to a better place. You know, and I've had parents break down and cry in front of me. I had parents who felt so bad, you know, they were horrible parents. I said, no, you're not a horrible parent. I said, the fact that you're able to listen to what I have to say is going to give you a better perspective on how to fix the situation. And once again, let me stop there. I don't fix situations. I gotta tell people, I don't fix situations. I help people communicate better so they can fix them on their own. And it's hard sometimes for a parent. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I hear definitely like with the particular strategies in place, which is something as much as positive for praise or just like the practice exercise with a mirror. It really does sound like if a parent goes home and they are consistent with this and intentional, hence our whole series about it being intentional with our parenting. If they're just intentional with these things, then it does sound like you will pretty much have the progress that, you will have the success that you're hoping for. And one of the things I like that you said is just pretty much like once you begin to have these open dialogues, then the child or the teen or the young adult will actually indeed begin to tell you more. And so that's something I really hope that our parents are hearing, that it is not an easy initial part of it. It's definitely
not.
Once the dialogue begins to be open and this thing is practiced, but there is a role that the parents, it sounds like, play a heavier role when it comes to making sure this communication remains within our homes.
Exactly. The onus is always on the parent. It is always on the parent. I know so many parents that want to blame the kids. No. It's not your kids, it's you.
So I wanted to shift a little bit, but still stay on the communication and talk about some other type of signals that are given off by communication. And so I watched one of your YouTube video specials where you were talking about what our bodies communicate to ourselves and to others in terms of the communication side. And so I wanted to focus, for the sake of parenting and communication, on that. And so can you talk to the Source Nation family about the physical part of communication, how this affects how inviting parents are to their children and how children's physical nonverbal communication kind of looks to parents?
Very good. As a parent, it's not always apparent that you need to be physically engaged with your child. And that being said, if a child comes to you, just for example, if a child comes to you and you have your arms crossed or your legs crossed while you're talking to the child, you're giving the signal subconsciously that you don't want to hear what that child has to say. You're automatically saying, I'm going to give you a negative response by me saying, by me listening to what you have to say. Now, you may think, no, that's not what I'm saying, but subconsciously that's exactly what you're saying, and subconsciously that's what the child is reading. 93% of all communication is nonverbal. 93% of all communication is nonverbal. Just think about it. Whenever you see somebody with their arms spread wide open and they meet you, you automatically think they want to give you a hug. If you meet somebody and they're talking to you, your arms is crossed, they automatically create a barrier like they don't have anything to deal with you. The same thing with the child. So by the physical aspect of caring for a child, when you tell a child, let's say a child got an A on a test or a B on a test, you tell the child, I'm so proud of you. You look the child, number one, directly in his or her eye. You have to make that physical eye contact. Once you do that, you're automatically creating that line of vision where only the child can focus on you and you focus on the child. You're telling the child right then and there, nothing else is going on. I don't care about anything. All I care about is the fact you got that B or the A on that test. Number two, you have to touch the child. There has to be some physical. It doesn't have to be. Let me back this up. The physical contact is a trust thing. Once you see that the communication bridge is closing and is getting together and you all are having a better communication, then you start to bring in the touch. The touch is an added bonus. The touch just is like the ribbon on the gift. it secures and it seals the deal. So you want to look the child in the eye. I always place my hand on kids' shoulders. I make sure I touch them on the shoulder while I'm shaking their hand, give them 2 points of reference to let them know, and I'm looking them in the eye, great job. I'm shoulder, handshake, great job. I'm giving them 2 forms of contact. When you have a parent, you can hug. You can start out with the shake. You can start out with the shoulder, and then you go to the hug. The children want to be hugged. Great job. And when you hug the child, you have to express in that hug. Think visually. Think about how this hug is going to make your child feel, and think about how it's going to make you feel when the child sends the hug back. These things plant a permanent and indelible image onto the child's brainstem. So they think, I got an A. My mom was proud. I know she was proud because she told me and she showed me by giving me a hug and looking me in my eye. She cares for me. So every single time that happens, the child will be expecting that same amount of love. Once that love builds up, then the child's like, well, I can't let her down, because if I let her down, I won't be able to get no hug. I won't be able to get the physical touch that I so willingly want and I so extremely and importantly need. So you have to be physical. When a child comes to you with any kind of craziness, and they will come with you some craziness, watch your body language. Watch how you're sitting. Are you standoffish? Are you looking away? Is your head tilted down? Are you tapping your foot? Are you breathing heavily? Or are you just being patient? Whenever a child talks to me, I am in their grill. I am in their grill. And then the trick is you want to look at the eye, the nose, the mouth. The mouth, the nose, the eye. You want to wipe the face with your eyes, like you're painting your face with your eyes. By doing that, it makes the other person think that you're really engaged. And you really are. So, and you just listen. You just nod your head, you listen. Don't make any facial structures. Don't make any facial reactions. Just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Well, I'm glad you shared. Now, when they leave the room, you can go crazy. When they leave the room or when they turn their back, you go, oh, my God, what is wrong with my child? But you cannot have that reaction in front of them, because all they will remember is that reaction.
Yeah, I've had some moments with my nice little angel, my 9-year-old, where he said something that just rubbed me the wrong way, and it took everything in me for my body language not to just exemplify everything that were in my thoughts. And so I remember just turning around and just literally being okay, because I was just well, because I knew that what I was going to communicate to him was going to really either put some fear in him, or either just kind of either intensify or kind of put a negative reaction that I didn't want to have. So I remember really just making sure my body language was just let me just turn around, turn all the way around, and come back a different look. And it made all the difference, because when I came back, I smiled about it, and he was just over there laughing too.
It's simple in theory, but sometimes it can be hard in delivery, and it can be hard in process, because our first reaction is what? You did what? But if you say that, you cut off the communication and you can't get to a resolution. So you have to always be mindful of your reactions and your physical actions, especially dealing with young people, because they read those things more than anybody.
Mm-hmm. The young people are going to push all your buttons. The older people, the young teens and our young adults parents who have those, they push a lot of buttons too. It's just about those sensitive subjects that make it very, very difficult to talk to them about it. And so it's kind of there's one challenge when it comes to behavior and friends and peers and bullying. And then kind of as you get a little older, some of the body language as far as facial expression, if your kid wants to talk about sex, they want to talk about drugs, relationships, or some things like that, that facial expression and body language that you give off makes a big difference as to how likely they are to ask any questions about sex or drugs or relationships.
Yes. Now, I'm not saying don't deal with the issue. I'm not saying if your child comes to you at 15 years old and tell you that they're having sex, you deal with the issue, but you don't deal with it right there, because the child is judging your reactions to see how much further they want to tell you. So if the child says to you, Mom, just wanted you to know that I had sex, you're like, what? In your head, you're like, what do you mean? What are you doing? Your head is going crazy. You're spinning out of control. But what you say to him is with a straight face, okay, well, let's talk about it. What happened? And then the child will want to give you more information. And then you'll say to the child, Well, I'm glad you told me this. I really appreciate you sharing this with me. We will revisit this at a later date. And then the child said, okay, well, it wasn't that bad then. Shoot, I thought you was going to call on me. Okay, we're revisiting. You go into your room, you scream into the pillow, you got to go drive, you go crazy on somebody, you got to eat you some chocolate or whatever, do something crazy. But you just cannot overreact in front of the child. And after you get out your system, then you come up with a plan. Then, like I said before, write it down. What exactly do you want to know about the situation? And what do you want to help? So you practice those things in the mirror again, and then you go back to the child. I wanted to revisit a conversation we had the other day about, your first sexual experience. And it could get really crazy. And he was like, okay, well, Mom, I was over at Susie's house and this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. But now that you know, now you can handle it. But if you react in a certain way, you will never get to the bottom of anything. And I've heard children say, and I've seen children say, see, that's why I don't tell you anything. Because you always getting mad. You're always expecting the worst. And then the parent go out, well, how do you expect me to act? You always do the same thing. And it goes back and forth, back and forth. And the communication bridge has burnt to the ground. And there's no self-discovery, and there's no illumination process, and everybody's exactly where they are. And in some places, you're further away than you were before. But that reaction, that physical and facial reaction will determine a lot.
Some good stuff. So, Joshua, we are running out of time, and so I don't want to go away without having Source Nation be able to get in touch with you, grab some of those awesome workshops, find out where you are, and any last words that you have for them, because you've gave some great strategies, some good basic insight into some things. And so I definitely want Source Nation to be able to get back in touch with you and follow you. So how can they do that?
Most definitely. Thank you once again, Jaketra, for giving me the opportunity to
You're
be
welcome.
on your most fantastical show. I mean, you do an excellent job. Well, first of all, the best way to get in contact with me is you can email me at communicatewithjosh. That is communicatewithjosh@gmail.com. And please, if you could, do me a favor, go to the YouTube page, Communicate with Josh. I have tips, I have strategies, I have my in the classroom work that I do with the young people. I also have a little web series called Communicate with Josh that you can find out more about what I do. Those are the best ways to get in contact with me. I've spoken to ages all the way from 4 all the way to 65. It's all communication. I don't care what your background is. I don't care where you went to school at. I did a whole program in the Department of Juvenile Justice dealing with these young people who've had some really, really tough times, who've had some really struggles, and who made some really, tricky decisions. But at the end of it, they all felt that they could be successful. One man said he wanted to be OBGYN. Other guy said he wanted to own his own health store. Another guy wants to be an artist. And I give these insights to these people because I let them know your past doesn't mean anything. It's all about what are you communicating to your future. So it doesn't matter what your background is. I have helped tons and tons of people. I was created to serve, and it's all from a communication standpoint. So once again, Communicate with Josh is the Gmail. Communicate with Josh at Gmail, and please subscribe to the YouTube Communicate with Josh on YouTube. That's the best way to get in contact with me.
So great. I love it. So I definitely will have to have you back on to at least do like a part 2 and just talk about some more ways that our families can actually improve their communication within our homes.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much for being on Family Mix Monday, and we will definitely talk soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you for having me.
Thank you. All right. Have a good evening.
All right. Have a better one.
Thank you. So, Source Nation, that was Joshua Peltier, a communication specialist, and he really shared some great strategies for improving our communication with our youth, to our parents, and our parents for our youth. And I just want to reiterate on a few take-homes. And so some bigger ones were like praise your children, be positive with your interactions and what you're communicating to them, and also about like being patient. And so the common theme that I kept hearing was about being consistent. And so consistency to me has an underlining thing about being intentional. So our whole series is focused on this intentional parenting. Like, we want to intentionally, on purpose, really parent. And so we want to break a lot of cycles that are happening. And one of those bigger cycles is how we're not able to communicate appropriately or effectively, if you will, to our youth and some of our family members. And so Joshua gave us some really great insight, and I really hope you do follow up with him and get in touch and grab one of those workshops and check out some of those YouTubes that he did give. And as always, I would like to thank our sponsors, and they are WGLRO.com, Scott Cares Foundation, Urban Grandstand Digital, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Blends, Renovations, and New Covenant Praise Worship Center. And so, Source Nation, I want to give you some info as to how you can get in touch with me. And as always, I am available for questions or any kind of follow-up with parenting or some of my expertise areas. And so I can be reached email at jabryant1913@gmail.com. My website is www.mentalperformances.com. Twitter at Jaketra B. And so I would like to leave you with my same series of quotes and invite you to please shoot me an email if you have a quote or a poem that you've written or heard that's awesome, that is pertaining to just parenting and just breaking a lot of cycles at home, within our homes. I'll be glad to read it on the show. And so parenting isn't a practice, it's a daily learning experience. And so, Source Nation family, once again, this is Family Mix Mondays with your host, Jaketra Bryant. And I want to thank you for joining me. Tune in next week.
Yo.